when ITEC got postponed to the spring, one of the things that we started talking about is how we still can deliver some learning experiences for everybody, especially because with esports being such a big topic in the state, with a lot of schools either looking at or starting their esports programs. Just keep seeing statistics after statistics about how many schools out there are starting esports programs, and then the benefits that they're seeing out of this. We want to make sure that we had an opportunity for some of our schools who are already doing esports to be able to share out. And we put together this webinar series where this first session, we're going to be kind of an overview of K12 Esports. We're going to have about 5 schools sharing out how they got going, what they're doing, what games they play, and then the benefits of their esports programs. And then our next webinar series, which is a week from today, we'll be having a discussion by the Iowa High School Esports Association, talking about how to get going with them, what they all do, and just sharing some information from them. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll have our third in the webinar series, looking at the technology behind esports and what are some of the options out there. So it's kind of a 3-part webinar series that we have planned for right now, but we are open to more webinar series in the future. So if there are a lot of questions coming out today, we will look at having some more of these. So of course, my name is, guess I should start there, but my name is Patrick Donovan. I am one of the ITEC board members. I am also one of the esports coaches at Nevada High School. So I'm just going to let everyone else that's present right now kind of introduce themselves, and then we'll get going to sharing out about some of our esports programs.
All right, thank you, Patrick. My name is Phil Trimble. I'm an IT director for Pocahontas Area Community School District and also an ITEC board member as well.
Hey everyone, Tanner Duncan. Worked with Bytespeed. I have Josh here on my team as well. He's kind of our gravity gaming and esports coordinator, but I'm the rep in Iowa. Kind of got to work with these great leaders in the state to put this together, and happy to have you all here.
Hi, I'm Allie Vandermein. I am the esports coordinator at Davenport Central High School. I'm also the curriculum specialist here in Davenport Schools for career and technical education.
And John and Nate, we're just introducing ourselves real quick. So if you guys want to just introduce yourselves.
Go for it, John. Here, I can go. My name is Nate Rodemeyer. I am a high school social studies teacher in Williamsburg, Iowa, and I'm also a deck or a coach for esports, and I'm also this year serving as the president of the IAHSEA.
Are we introducing or something? Sorry,
yep, just introduction.
All right, John Grunwald, tech administrator for Fairfield Schools, esports general manager, basically, deck for Fairfield. I'm also the current vice president for the IAHSEA.
All right, so we're going to have some of the esports coaches and coordinators here share out about their program, kind of talking about how they got started, what games they play, how they play, maybe a little info about their technical subspaces, and then of course any of the big lessons learned or positives that have come out of their program. So if Allie, if you'd like to start us off there, sharing about your program, that'd be great.
Sure, I'd love to. I was actually trying to figure out my timeline because I am terrible at years, and especially with COVID in here, I was trying to figure out how many years it's been, because I'm pretty sure it's been 100, including COVID, since I've started the esports program. But honestly, I think it's been about 5. I started off as a chemistry teacher, and one of my students in my chemistry classroom wanted to sign up for a League of Legends tournament, and they needed a teacher to sign off on it. And that's where I started, and it's kind of exploded since then. We now host all of the games that the Iowa High School Esports Association does in competition. So we have Smash Brothers, Rainbow Six Siege, Rocket League, Overwatch, Smite, and Mario Kart. We also generally host a lot of Minecraft challenges and Minecraft Olympics out of our arena as well. So when we got started, it was just in my classroom and we had to set up and tear down every single day. Now we have our own space, which is super cool. It's hosted in the back of the library. So we have 18, 19, 21 computers and 2 switches set up in our arena, which is really awesome. We can host pretty much as many kids as want to show up on a regular basis. So we're able to host our varsity games on one half of the arena, and then we kind of have our swirling chaos of the club being hosted on the other half. So that's kind of our, what games we play, our technical setups. Lessons learned is certainly, I have lots of pro tips when I do my how to start an esports organization, but one of the first ones is preparation is key. I am certainly somebody who is far more likely to jump off a cliff and assume I can build the parachute on the way down, which is a piece that you need to do, right? At some point you do just need to jump, but disorganization and chaos is not useful to the students. I think the biggest example I have is we were setting up our Rainbow Six Siege accounts and we didn't realize that you needed to log in twice because nobody actually logged all the way into the game to test that. So we were trying to have all the kids log in all at once, as well as doing, we were doing tryouts at the same time. And so it was a bunch of kids who had never been in before, and it was just chaos. So just like in your regular classroom, especially if you're a classroom teacher, try everything out first before you send the kids out forward. That's probably my biggest lesson learned from a mistake our first year. But I would say that having esports at our school has been hugely positive. It's reaching a group of students that does nothing else in our school. It's just created such a community for students who had really never had it before. And it's created a community of kids who are excited now to be at school who had never had before. I always tell this story. It's probably because it's one of my very favorites. Our first year that we did Smash back in the beta season for the IAHSEA, we were doing really well, and I was walking down the hallway and there were 2 Smash kids who really had never talked to each other before, suddenly going, "Blue Devils!" And they high-fived each other as they passed and kept going. And it was just so cool to see these kids who, like, they're your very traditional basement dweller kids. That was really nice to see them excited and have some school spirit. And I think that's all of your questions.
All right, thank you. And of course, we are going to have a Q&A at the end. So if anybody does have a question for Allie, either put into the chat now or we'll get to it at that point. So Nate, would you like to share out about your guys' program?
Yeah, for sure. So we started, we joined the IHS, oh my gosh, you think I'd say that better. The Iowa High School Esports Association. We joined in spring of 2020 to start up with Siege and Rocket League at the time. And then we got midway through that season before all the COVID craziness hit. And so we had to end the season prematurely. And then we came back last year and did Smash Brothers, Overwatch, no, we didn't have a Rocket League team last year. We did Smash, Overwatch, Mario Kart, and Siege last year. And then this year so far, we've been involved with both Siege and Smash Brothers here. So our program, again, started in like fall 2019, but didn't start playing until spring of 2020 here. We use the industrial tech computer lab. So my co-coach is one of the industrial tech teachers. And so we had a very fortunate circumstance where right before we found out about the organization, they had just updated all the computers in the tech lab to be used for some computer aided design and engineering type stuff. And they ended up working out fantastically for gaming as well. And so we have 25 PCs in that lab that we have access to using. And then we've also ballooned up to having several Nintendo Switches that we use for the Switch games and projectors and that sort of thing there. So we do have a dedicated space in the school, which is fortunate. That classroom is used during the day, but we always have that space available in the evenings. Let's see here. Biggest lessons that we learned when we were first getting started is paying for the game licenses sucks, especially if you're going through Steam. What we were finding out, no matter how we did it, even when we got approval from the school, is that you could only purchase and gift out so many copies of a game before Steam or Epic or whatever storefront you were using thought that it was suspicious or fraudulent activity, and they were flagging those or suspending those transactions for further review. It eventually got resolved. I ended up filling out Steam support tickets, I don't even know how many times, and getting it all resolved, but that was a huge headache. And so I've also written a document that's like, hey, if you're first buying games for a program and you want to figure out how to do this so you don't have all those headaches, That's something that I can share out, and I'm sure many other people have experiences with that as well. The other big lesson that we definitely learned, especially our first season running Siege, was to be mindful of those game updates, because we had Siege games that were typically being played on Tuesdays, and Tuesday were also the weekly updates for Siege. And especially at the start of a new season, some of those updates were massive. There was one that came out our first year where they had redone a bunch of the textures and added some HD textures to the game and did this whole season update. And so it ended up being a massive, I want to say like 60, 70 plus gigabyte update for every single machine. And so getting that access to that at like 8 or 9 a.m. and then getting all those computers or enough of them updated by 4 p.m. so they could play was a nightmare and sucked the bandwidth that our school had. And I'm sure they really appreciated that. But that was probably the two biggest lessons to pull away. Some of the positives, I can echo a lot of the same things as Allie. Our school's a lot smaller, and so our esports kids aren't necessarily just esports, and that's like their niche. Some of them, we're sharing them with music and other things like that. But we do certainly have students who pretty much do esports, and that's it. So giving them that space has been fantastic. And just seeing, especially in this last season, just the communication, the team building, the camaraderie that comes from running one of these programs and getting those guys to interact in that way has been incredibly rewarding and positive for those students. And they truly are getting the same sorts of skills and concepts and things they would get in any other sort of traditional sport within the context of esports. That has been fantastic.
All right, thank you, Nate. And I do see we have a couple questions in the Q&A. If you guys want to keep submitting those, we'll get to those at the end after all 5 coaches have kind of shared out. So John, would you like to share about your guys' program?
I think we started back kind of like Allie. I got to kind of think through that time frame a little bit. I think ours was the fall of 2019. It was right before ITEC, and I had seen some messages go back and forth about esports. I'm like, what the heck is esports? I had no clue at the time. So I started looking into it, and at that same time, we had homecoming going, and they were introducing the court, and I had a bunch of people announce that they played Fortnite. And I thought, okay, put these two things together. So I started talking to the football players, and they got all excited. And I started talking to our curriculum director and our superintendent, who were all on board because of the idea of bringing these kids together that didn't have somewhere else to fit in necessarily. So at that point, we started to talk with our admin and stuff, and we did just a couple tournaments and things. And then the next fall, we officially got in with the high school association, started with Smash. Then during the winter, I think we took the winter off because there were titles we didn't play. And then in the spring, we did Mario Kart Team, Mario Kart Time Trials, and we did Rocket League. And so those were always a good time. We did play some tournaments. We went up to Pocahontas, Phil's area, to play some Smash stuff in that time before then. And one of the positive things was, I had kids who socially were maybe a little awkward, but when we went up there to play up at Phil's place, some of those kids were the first ones to go greet his team and make friends across the board. And it was just really cool to see. We started with just using our Project Lead the Way machines in a classroom. They weren't much better than toasters, so it's a good thing we started with some League of Legends, but we had those there. And what we found is that it wouldn't run Fortnite real well, and a lot of our kids suddenly stopped coming because they had better machines at home than they did at school. So I said, okay, we need to find a way to get better equipment. And we teamed up with US Cellular for something and just tried to get some other people behind us. And we had a board member set up a website, and we talked with Bytespeed about what we could afford. And then we had some of the money start coming. We started working concession stands and things. So at the same time, I had kids interested in Smash. I'm like, well, I don't know anything about this. I bought a Switch to see what happened. And all of a sudden I had 25 kids in the room. I'm like, okay, this is something's happening here. So we continued to work concession stands and things like that. And we got enough money to get the computers. We got those through Bytespeed and stuff. And then we thought we need a place that's our own, because we're in the middle of a Project Lead the Way classroom, and it's not our place and things. And we had an English storage room, and one of the English teachers was one of my coaches. So we talked to the English department. They said, yeah, we'll clean up the storeroom for you guys. Long story short, new carpeting, new paint, new computers, new furniture. We have a space of our own there too now. So that's really cool. But we had a lot of help from different businesses that we deal with, and even ones that we don't, some that are just in town. And one big takeaway I had is don't be afraid to ask. I went to one of our furniture vendors. I said, hey, would you consider maybe donating just a couch type unit for an esports arena? He's like, what's esports? So I told that, and he kind of laughed. Pretty soon he comes back, he says, we kind of want to get in on something like that. And, you know, now we've got a whole room full of stuff. I talked to somebody else just about some LED lights, and he's like, what's esports? Same thing. And then he helped us with our live stream equipment, and he's still helping us. He wants to build in some LED lighting and things like that. So they were sponsors. It wasn't money from them necessarily, but it was still sponsorship. And it showed our kids that people believed in them and what they were doing. So by the time it came to jerseys, I've got like 14 sponsors listed on the back of our jerseys, because they might have donated money. They might have donated some carpeting. They might have paid for part of the jersey, but I was able to get some money and some equipment that way. And it didn't cost me anything to put their name on the website. It didn't cost me really anything to put their name on the jersey. They're going to be on our wall, our sponsorship wall, and they're going to be on our digital signage. And that just gets their name out there and things like that. So we've had some real good partnerships and some real excitement there. Another positive that we had, I had heard about this from one other school, and I've talked with a couple of schools in the association too. Just like football has locker signs and basketball has locker signs, the cheerleaders started making locker signs for our kids every time we had a smash meet or we had Rocket League. And those were out in the hallway because we weren't using lockers and stuff because of COVID, but they just lined the whole hallway right down from the door to our arena. So our kids were getting recognition there, and that was really cool. And they were really proud of that. So that was something really positive too. And we've talked with the newspaper, we've talked with the radio, we've talked with the TV, and time again, I've got these kids saying, you know, I have friends now in esports that I wouldn't have had before. I've got some drama kids that didn't play sports. I've got some sports kids that didn't do drama, but within esports, they flat out tell them, they said, I have relationships with these other kids that we wouldn't have had before. And that's where my curriculum director is huge into this. He couldn't play Tetris if he sat down to do it, but he loves the connections that are built between the kids. The other thing I would say, a big lesson that I learned right off the bat, don't overextend yourself. When we first did this, we told the high school administration, we want to have time where we're not going to be in conflict with other sports and other clubs. And that's totally fine, dandy. But what we did then is we ended up setting hours for our lab to be open, like 80 hours a week, early morning, after school, on the weekends. And it was tough to cover that. And you might cover it for 2 kids that showed up. So after doing a semester of that, we said, no, we're going to dial that back in. And we still work with the other coaches and the other sponsors. And that part is really great. But don't overextend yourself and burn yourself out. That's a big takeaway I took from before. So I think that covers most of what you were looking for.
All right, thanks, John. And then we'll move on to Phil.
All right, thanks, Patrick. We started our esports about in 2017, actually as a tabletop gaming club. And we had noticed we were playing Settlers of Catan and all sorts of fun games, and noticed kids started bringing in their Nintendo Switches. And so we kind of just put it out there, say, okay, bring in your Switches, your Xbox, your PlayStations, bring your own devices in. And that's how the informal esports club kind of started. The next year, we actually got board approval to start the club, so which brought in sponsor salaries for us, also created good conduct policies, and we were able to purchase 6 computers to start with, which were dual purpose for our business department and our art department. With our budget, that was the only way we could kind of pull that off. Our third year, we joined Iowa Esports, or High School Esports Association. And with that, we added an additional 4 computers. Just 6 computers wasn't enough. We had a large number of students coming in wanting to play recreational. And then when we joined the High School Esports Association, we also had a good number that wanted to do competitive. So to go along with what John was saying about burning yourself out, we were doing 10 computers every single night, well, Monday through Friday, and that got to be a lot. So we had to kind of separate the rec play with the competitive play and at least get it down to 3 nights. So with that, some of the obstacles that we've come across have been our budget. We've had our students do some fundraising. They take money at some of the ticket gates for our middle school football games, and they're able to keep the proceeds for that. We're also, transportation is a huge obstacle for us. We are a very large district when it comes to square miles. So finding rides home for those kids after school has become an issue as well. So.
All right. So I guess I'll share out now. And actually, if I go back to January of 2020, I was down at FETC conference down in Orlando and went to a session about esports. And that's when I learned about Grandview University and their program, which was just down the road from me in Ames. And I'm like kind of surprised because I was hearing about esports, but not a lot in the K12 setting. And there was a huge section there. So I went to every session I could about esports. And at the time I was tech director in Ames. And so I came back and that became something I tried working on, tried laying the groundwork for, decided to change districts, change positions, go back to the tech coach role, come here to Nevada where I am now. And luckily they did all the hard work before I got here. So I could just come in and have fun. But they actually started a couple of years before I got here, really started talking about the idea of esports. And they surveyed the students to make sure there was student interest. They brought it up to the school board and administration, making sure that they were all on board. There are some rules that they want to put in place. Like for one was that we are not allowed to play mature level games. So that's one thing that kind of was a rule set before I got here, and one that, we haven't had to push back yet. But and then they did fundraising. The other esports coach, Jason Sampson, he's actually also our director of transportation, and he had gone to some businesses and got some donations on that. And then of course our tech director, Joe Wakeman, set aside money because before I even got here, they had purchased 6 gaming laptops, some monitors, keyboards, mice, and then of course a Nintendo Switch. And they're using some of that money that was donated, but they also was, just again, out of the tech department budget. So that's why if you're thinking about esports, starting a program, your tech director really has to be on board in a lot of ways, but also because that's where the budget may be for you. And that's where it kind of was for us, but we still are working off some of those donations we had. So I came on board, we surveyed the kids, said, hey, who wants to play this fall? We have Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. It's going to be our first game using Nintendo Switch, which, I've been playing Smash since college. So I was really gung-ho about that. And we had kids coming in, and I remember that first meeting, we were outside at the football stadium. Kids came in, we're following all the COVID regulations, and that was, a year ago. And it was just great to see the kids, and they're interested. And I could tell some of them were very shy, never been involved in sports or activities before. And so they're kind of very curious about what this would be. And we set up space in the library. We had a little room off to the side for our computers. We were all set up with the Switch. We had some of these collaboration stations, so we had the TVs we could use for Smash. And it was just a great experience for them coming in, just because a lot of our students were not involved in other activities. Now this year, a lot of them are involved in band, which has been a little troublesome, make sure they're all there on time. And they made me go to band to go watch them, perform. But our first year we played Smash Ultimate. Then, the winter we played Overwatch. We barely had enough kids to form a team, but they were there and they were playing hard and they're helping each other to learn the game. And of course, Mario Kart in the spring was a big one for us. And this fall, it's kind of nice just because I've been able to watch the kids grow in esport athletes in a sense, because last year they're playing for fun, they're having a lot of fun with it, but they weren't really serious about improving or helping each other improve. And this year they've really been focusing on that. Last week, actually, a couple of the students wanted to run the practice, and they had a presentation up and they're talking about everything with all the other kids and just focusing on skill sets and that. And I'm like, you know what, this is why you guys were 6-0 this season, because you did things differently. So it's really great to see that growth. And then just, as we get ready for this winter, I've already had a couple kids say they can't wait to play the winter's games, because without that, they're not involved with anything else. And I know a couple of them, that's a big reason. One did tell me, that's a reason why he made sure his grades were passing, was he wanted to play. Otherwise, he wouldn't care. And so that was, I heard that on Thursday, and I was, that's been back in my mind ever since. And that's been kind of one of my biggest takeaways, and just seeing kids involved in something that they may not otherwise be involved in. I consider myself an OG, an original gamer. These thumbs are finally tuned by Mario back in the 80s. And it's just great. I was all for this when I got here, and it's just been great to see the program grow and that. And, John talked about this a little bit, but how, the esports kids getting involved with other things like being recognized. Our seniors got recognized as senior night on Friday night football game. We had our official team pictures taken. Kids got their buttons. They had one parent that really wanted a button of their daughter playing esports. And we have our jerseys. You can see mine in the background here. I think a lot of that's just great. It's showing acceptance of the program. We're year 2, it's something new, something I know I really enjoyed. Allie, I think you had one statement you kind of want to add about your technology, and then we'll get into the Q&As.
Yeah, I kind of realized that I really didn't talk about how we got our machines. Josh and Tanner, close your ears for a second. We have repurposed our machines from machines that we have cycled out of our business and engineering departments, and then we just kind of upgrade them with parts. So we're fundraising for parts as opposed to entire machines, and that's a way that we have done it. I'm going to call it on the cheap. And that has actually worked pretty well for us. We were able to get, before COVID hit, we were able to get graphics cards like really cheap. And so we just kind of slotted new graphics cards into these kind of older machines. And we've been up and running basically for about a budget of like $200 and sunk into our machines, with as many computers as we have. So I just kind of wanted to add that our machines are dedicated to esports. They are not used during the school day for anything else, but we do that through using basically discards. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and our computers are, we have gaming laptops, 6 of them that are specifically esports, and then 6 old machines. Before the graphics card shortage, we were able to get those set up. We do have a question here. We'll go with Allie's question. Are any of you affiliated with your district sports or athletic programs, or is this a standalone venture? Yeah, we are. I mean, our activities director, athletics director, kind of was one of the people really on board with this to get going. And so we've been working with him a lot in terms of, just making sure we're following all the same eligibility rules as everyone else. We're following everything else that's expected of them. And that helps too, because then your team is getting recognized, I think, like the other teams that are. And I'll let the others, they want to answer that as well.
Yeah, Pac, we too are working with our athletic director as well for our good conduct policies. Not quite as much as Nevada. That's pretty awesome to hear that you guys are doing the senior nights with them and, contributing to those sporting events as well. So
We aren't an official athletic organization. We are a school-sponsored club or a school-recognized club. We do have an account in our activities account, but part of our belief when we started is we didn't want to cost the school money, because we didn't want them to say, oh, this is going to be too much. No, you can't do it. So we are still in the mode that we are raising the money ourselves and things, but they did give us that. They will cover any sort of transportation if we travel somewhere, things like that. But yeah, we are not an official athletic team. We do not have paid coaches. Myself and the other coaches are all volunteer. So we're a little bit different than some of the other schools with that.
I guess I'll just add to John's real quick. I guess I forgot to say it. Yeah, last year I was not a paid coach. I was a volunteer. But I mean, I'm going to come play video games with kids any day of the week. But I am paid this year, and so is the other coach. And then our activities director does cover a little bit things, but that's not most for our funding. I think you're ready, Nate.
Yeah, we're also kind of in like a weird in-between spot. We're officially recognized as a club, but we're kind of working towards that recognition. So like we haven't been like recognized at like senior night and haven't had team pictures and whatnot, but we have had our positions turned from volunteer to paid. So we're getting paid to do esports. We got a parade in the homecoming float and got recognized at the homecoming rally there and got to speak there. We've been told that if we have any students who get signed on to play collegiate esports, that we can host signings for them. Transportation and stuff is something similar that we can request to be covered if we go somewhere. So we're kind of in that weird in-between spot. So we're technically considered a club, but we are experiencing some of the benefits of the traditional sports.
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of add on to that. We're also, I'm in a very large school, so bureaucracy is a little bit different. So we have athletics, activities, and clubs at our school, and I am in a very fortunate place where show choir has forged the way for what it looks like to be a supported activity. So we're considered a supported activity, which is equivalent to an athletics thing, but we don't make our kids run around. And so we also get to experience a lot of the positive benefits of transportation is provided. My coaches are getting paid for the first time this year, which is exciting. I'm not paid, but because I gave that up so my coaches could, because they actually supervise the kids. But we are getting stipends, which is really awesome. But I will say this is the first year that we're doing it. And like I said, I've been doing this for 5 years. So it was a fight. And I think that it's a really important conversation and fight to have though.
Benny has a question. The games competitions are hosted. Are they local competition between team and school, or are they between schools? And all 5 of us here are actually members of the Iowa High School Esports Association. So these are matches we're playing as part of the league. Like right now in our Smash season, we are in the first week of the playoffs. So of course I'm paying really close attention to Nate's results tomorrow, because I expect to see him next week on Tuesday. I mean, tell you how it works. I even have right over there is the bracket for Smash. I'm all set up, ready to go on that. And that's actually kind of the topic of our next week webinar. There's going to be more about the Iowa High School Esports Association. There are multiple leagues out there, but this is kind of our big one in the state. So if you really want to hear more about that, definitely join us next week for that webinar. I don't want to go too much into it just because of that. I think Allie has a quick thing.
Yeah, I just really want to comment. So before the Iowa High School Esports Association, so as a note, I'm one of the founding members of the Iowa High School Esports Association. And the whole reason that I founded this association was because we did participate in those national leagues before we started this. And I would just like to tell people that it is a rough experience. So just be prepared. Like the whole reason that the IAHSEA is around is because we wanted to have its educators providing positive experiences for students. So we are really student focused. And so I just really want to emphasize how really good even, the IAHSEA is. And I know that I'm super biased, but I just want to make sure people realize we have participated in those national leagues and it is rough. And it's not just rough because of competition, it's rough because there's no consequences for people forfeiting or not even showing up. And that's hard.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, kind of get people to attend our webinar next week, but it's been really nice going against local teams. We haven't been able to face anybody in person yet. I'm hoping we can do that soon, but I know some teams have. Otherwise, everything has been online. If Nintendo would get their gear together, then I wouldn't be so interested in person, but as long as Nintendo has a bad online system. We'll get to Ryan's question here. He said, be interested in hearing about the way everyone streams on tournament days as far as spectators. Parents interested in watching, and that's been kind of a big thing. I know for myself, we stream every match we can, and we stream straight to YouTube. We're like one of the lone teams in the league that goes straight to YouTube. That's because we don't want to deal with Twitch on blocking, just because, there's some bad things on Twitch. But I mean, yeah, we stream everything. We have a streaming rig that will plug into the Switch, or you run a HDMI feed into the laptop. And then we have something else for Overwatch. And, that's been kind of the fun. And that's part of the appeal of esports, I think. Now everybody kind of share what they do, but there are a lot of careers out there in esports related around live streaming, media creation, and all that. This summer, I got the chance to do a tour of the version 1 headquarters. They are a pro esports team that Minnesota Vikings owners own. So they're up there at training camp at their facilities there. And I was talking with one of their media people about all the stuff that they're doing. And he pointed to me to 3 open desks He said, we are filling those positions in the next month because we have such a high need for media creators, live streamers, and all that. And so it was kind of really cool to see. So I'll let others kind of talk about that.
Yeah, right now we aren't doing any of that, but we are very interested in starting streaming and shoutcasting and the live streams. And I was going to ask you, Patrick, would you be willing to share your hardware with us on November 8th?
I can talk about that a little bit. I've been meaning to put a blog post out there because we have a different setup we use for Smash and Mario Kart games that we do for Overwatch and Rocket League. And some of it's older equipment. We actually have a gaming laptop we use for the Smash games, and it works really well.
In terms of us for streaming, we stream everything as well. We do go straight through Twitch. We have a capture card for the Switch. We have OBS that we use on the desktop or the laptops for other streaming purposes. And then we have a couple of students, one in particular who he's been involved in esports since pretty much it started. And he played Siege at first, but then he immediately wanted to switch into that commentator role. And so he's been doing our commentary for pretty much every game since we started, and he's really enjoyed that. And we've had some other students that get on board with it. And we've had some like behind the scenes coaching and teaching about how to do that we're always working on. And it's just a lot of different things to manage. And so I definitely hear us out here when we're saying like, oh, you could have dedicated people doing your live streaming, your editing and your commentary and all this stuff. Absolutely. And we've even talked to some colleges and asked them, like when students come to your university and they're interested in esports, are there scholarships or things available for them in the vein of broadcasting or commentary? And some are no, but a lot of them are yes, or they're moving towards that in the near future. So yeah, we stream everything we can through Twitch. We've even gotten like affiliate status and figured out how to get the donations and all that set up so we can have people subscribe to the channel and get some funds trickling in that way as well. So we try to stream everything we can. Our biggest obstacle is trying to get people to watch our stuff. And I don't know if anybody else has seen that, but with a lot of our games being right after school, a lot of parents are still at work or things like that. But we do have that available. And then when they're done, we save the VODs from Twitch and upload them on our YouTube channel so that they can stay there, just because Twitch is a little bit finicky with how long they keep your videos. So
I want to just back up 1 second if I could. First of all, Patrick, oh, that hurt. Will you be disappointed when we take Nate out tomorrow and you have to face us, the dark horse? Second of all, going back to that, yeah, we were one of the schools that did play face-to-face a couple times. We were fairly close, within a half hour of a couple schools, so we got together and played face-to-face for fun. It was just awesome to be able to do that. We couldn't do that the year before. So if you have some people in the area, I mean, it's a bonus to do it, but it is nice to be online. As far as live streaming, we also, and we haven't done it yet this year because there's so many things that took a lot of our time. We didn't get it done yet. But when we stream straight to Twitch and to YouTube simultaneously. So we also go right to YouTube. I like that because it stays up there longer and things like that. We have a separate cart that it's a Harbor Freight tool chest. And when you unlock the top and lift it up, we've got 3 monitors on the top. We can pull in 3 different feeds. It could be from the Switch. It could be from a computer. It could be from our cameras on our team playing, and one on our commentators, and do picture-in-picture and run audio through all of that too. And it just goes out then to either YouTube or Twitch or both, or one and then record it, things like that. So that's all in a nice cart like that. So that's what we do. But again, we hadn't done that yet this year. That's a time thing.
Now, I was just basing my comment off of the previous records. I kind of, hope it's a good match because we plan on watching it during practice tomorrow. And I will say I've been listening to a lot of Nate's live streams as I try to see on their division for Smash. And yeah, their announcer, the kid that's dedicated to that, has done a good job. That's kind of a hard thing to do, is like, I got some kids to do it, some kids are not. And it's varies by game, varies by that. The worst thing is when I have to do the live announcing, because I am very much easily distracted and I want to coach, not talk. And if you ever listen to our live stream when I'm doing it, you can tell that I get distracted for a bit and forget to like unmute myself. I will say another thing about sorry, Tanner.
I was just going to say, I hear more and more that not only are esport athletes getting college scholarships, but shoutcasters are as well. shoutcasters and editors. Is there anyone that is a panelist on here that can talk that from experience where either a shoutcaster or student has gotten scholarship?
I had a student through NASEF do a contest a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I think, where he had to analyze a smash match, and you had to provide feedback as a shoutcaster and feedback as a coach. And he ended up with a scholarship from NASEF for that. And his brother, it was one of the exciting things for me last year, he was doing some JV Rocket League stuff. So when our varsity would play, he would jump on and shoutcast that. And he had a friend who didn't want to shoutcast, but he ran all of the equipment. So the two of them made a good pair. His friend would set all the equipment up. He'd do all the switching of the cameras. He'd do the shoutcasting. And they were there every time there was a varsity match because they knew the game, but they also liked taking care of that side, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. I don't know if anybody in the league has that, but that'd be a question could always be posted, especially just because of all the college programs that are doing this. There's a lot of community colleges in Iowa that are starting esports or have that. And then of course, Grandview with their big program. Iowa State's still just at club status now, even though I think they're trying to do more. I know Josh and Tanner will talk more about the equipment side of things in 2 weeks in our webinar then, especially about the live streaming equipment. I know they have some stuff that would help with that. And that makes things a lot easier if you have the equipment. Then you got to get the people involved, right? Kevin Katz has a nice little question about anyone doing virtual reality games at their schools. I can say we're not yet. I would love to, but not yet.
We are. But one of the things that my students get to, and this is actually a part of a class that they take, we have a student help desk class. And so we got to rebuild some of the virtual reality machines that were out in our junior highs. And as a reward, we got to keep one of them. And so we have Beat Saber in our lab, which I don't know if you all have watched a child play Beat Saber, but it is the funniest thing you've ever seen. So yeah, we do have virtual reality set up. It's with a Vive, which is kind of old technology, but it's still really fun. And the kids really engage with it.
I did watch some video this weekend of a group playing pretty much almost like CSGO, but with virtual reality. And they were in this giant room, physically moving around. That'd be a great way to have esports move. Just, be worried about kids slapping each other, not knowing in virtual reality space. If there are any more questions out there that people have for us, I don't see anything more in the Q&A or in the chat. I think we talked more about that. And I know there was a question kind of about other people around or who's here from different areas. And again, if you come to the webinar next week, the Iowa High School Esports Association can talk about where the schools are all who are participating in the league, where they're from. They're spread throughout the state, though. I will say that I kind of want more people in central Iowa so I can go to their school and face them more easily. Not really wanting to do an hour, 2 hour drive for that. But if there are any more questions, any last comments from any of the panelists?
I was just going to say that we have talked about either hosting or sponsoring or working with some of the schools in the state to host more in-person tournaments. So keep an eye out for those.
I will say, Kevin Katz, you had one more question there about how long esports competitions go. I think typically our matches, it depends on the game, of course, but we usually at least run an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Some of the games may even approach 2 hours, and that's just a weekly competition. There are people who participate in tournaments, which you could have a tournament last a whole day. We have not participated in that, but our typical weekly matches do run at least in around an hour and a half or so.
I will say that the rule sets were written to be an average of an hour. Rocket League is underneath that. Rocket League matches tend to only take like a half an hour. They're really quick. It's just soccer with cars, so it goes fast. And Rainbow Six actually usually greatly exceeds that. That is probably the longest game that we run, somewhat by accident. But they are supposed to take an hour until you go all 3 rounds with all 5 kids in a Smash crew, and suddenly you're there 2.5 hours later. But yeah, so think of it kind of like a basketball game.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting with Smite in the spring, seeing how long those last. And, oftentimes it's, if you don't have tech issues, things can run pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. Like my experience has been about hour and a half as well. Some really long siege games. And yeah, as long as tech is working fine, it goes pretty smooth. But if there's some hangups, then I know that can create some frustration and some exceedingly long nights. But I think from our experience, we've had schools that have been really good about trying to accommodate each other and work through those tech issues and support each other so that kids can play. So that's been great.
I think we have another question here about any middle schools involved in Iowa. Now, the Iowa High School Esports League is high school focused. I know various schools have figured out looking at ways to have middle school components. We have at Nevada, we were still working on that. We had some kids coming in for a while. They were playing Overwatch and Rocket League while our Smash kids were on the Switch. And unfortunately, now all of our equipment's taken up by our varsity team. So we're still looking at how to get those middle schoolers involved. I think you come up with an equipment shortage. Now it's different maybe in a larger district versus a medium-sized district like Nevada, where our middle schoolers are literally right down the hall. Our two buildings are connected. And we just do it all.
Yeah, we are a 712 building, and so we have the J-Hires right there with us. And so as long as we have open space in the tech lab, we encourage them to come down and do like an open gym sort of setting where they're practicing Rocket League, Overwatch, whatever it is. That way they're getting that game time under their belt. They're getting to see how the practices operate, and they're getting that practice for when they come to the high school level. I know that there's been a couple like one-off sorts of things that we've ran or considered running where we do open it up to middle schoolers. But again, the league is only high school. But again, there are at least some of those opportunities in there. We've also ran into the same problem where sometimes we've had so many high schoolers involved that we haven't had the space to accommodate the J-Hires as well. But that's kind of how ours are getting involved too. They're practicing and doing what they can on the sides. And some of them are doing like, behind the scenes type help stuff as well, like putting up bulletin boards or doing commentary, that kind of stuff.
I know NASF has done some Minecraft competitions in the past for middle schoolers, which has been one way if you can do that. We'll go to a couple more questions and make sure we're done kind of on time here. Jacob asked, most students could be at school or from home. If it's virtual, it's been mostly in person. Last year, I know with COVID regulations, we did have some distance learners. For myself, our Rocket League team was made up of 3 distance learners and 1 in person. So, which is really strange when you're sitting in a computer lab with 1 kid and the other 3 are all online and you're trying to coach them. I much prefer in person.
Yeah, 100%. Like we've had it before where we're all in a Discord chat and like all in a voice chat and trying to all participate like in the same match. And it's just not the same as having the whole team in the same room as much as you want it to be. So like, while it is technically still an option, really only use it for health and safety reasons. Like if you can play in person, play in person. That's where all the benefits come in.
Absolutely. I can kind of build on that with a unique perspective because last year with the 2 coaches that we had, myself and the other guy, I did a lot of my coaching remotely, and that was only out of necessity, and I would not recommend it. But yeah, being in the Discord calls, trying to communicate and coordinate that stuff, like it functions. And so, it does work, but being in person where you can get that live feedback right away, you can get better oversight of your kids. You can, do so much more when you're in person. So, and as far as games go right now, at least with our league, we do still allow the option for a remote play situation. So if a student is out due to COVID or some other reason, if they're a remote learner, then there is an option for them still to fill out a form and say like, hey, I'm playing from home this week. And so we have allowed that as an option for health and safety reasons. But ideally, once that all passes, then we will be going back to, they need to be in the room together, practicing with each other as a team.
Last year, we had at least one person. Well, we had one person that played Smash remotely. And sometimes they'd kind of get forgotten about, even though they were on a voice chat with us. You'd start the banning process, everybody get it. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, we didn't hear from this one. But the other big thing I like about it is when you have them all in person, that socialization right there, it is just priceless. And when you get something exciting going and you're sitting there by yourself, you might hear through a Discord chat some people cheering, but to actually have the crowd there, to have your teammates there cheering you on when something really good happens, boy, it raises the excitement in the room. There's nothing like having them there, which is also impacted when you are having a face-to-face with another school. It's just really cool to have both schools there face-to-face, which, sometimes with distance or COVID type things, you can't do that. But having the kids there in person as much as you can just really helps socially. I think, and the excitement level.
I think we'll hit these last two questions, but if you do have any more questions, definitely attend our webinar next week with the Iowa High School Esports Association. Kevin asked a question about, do we offer varsity letters to our esports? I'll say yes. And we follow the same rules and everything with the good conduct as we do with any other activities. We talk heavily about good sportsmanship and what does that mean when you're an online gamer, because we know that there's that viewpoint out there about kids who game and their behavior in that. And I do think you have to teach it. Now I'll throw in Jeff's question too, because I think that almost plays into this. He asked about, do you do any more like health and fitness, talks with your kids and that? And yeah, we've had people come in, you talk about fitness and that, but I also think mental health is an important thing to talk about. Talking with your students, they need to take breaks from this, because that plays, I think, into that as well, where if you just play online all night, you're going to get a little salty and then use bad language later on. Let anybody else kind of talk on that as we finish up?
We have definitely had the energy drinks does not equal sleep conversation several times. I don't know about the rest of you, but oh boy, they are actually banned in my arena now. And we have really good conversations about why energy drinks are not appropriate to use at 5 o'clock in the evening. And so we actually worked with Grandview's nutritionist. We got to have Dana come out and have a really good, or not Dana, the other one, come out and have a really good conversation with our kids about nutrition and gaming. We've even worked with an optometrist to have conversations about how to like really relax your eyes and understand eye strain when it comes to gaming. So there's lots of really good opportunities to integrate health and nutrition into your esports program as well.
This is something that I've really wanted to do, but and I'm sure that you guys can feel this crunch too. Like when I'm looking at my week and what we're going to do in practice and going, where the heck is all this time? And every time that I want to do something like this, I get complaints about like, oh, pulling them off the game or whatever. And we already spend time doing VOD review and we do team building things at the beginning. We always huddle in my room beforehand. So this is something I absolutely want to incorporate, but have not gotten to yet just because of that precious time. I feel like I already take so much time away from them where they're not practicing, where a lot of them really need it. But this is definitely an important thing. And I'm glad that a lot of you guys are doing it.
I will also say that my kids, my Smash team especially, they take strength and conditioning too with the regular athletes or traditional athletes. They chose to do that, and it's really fun to listen to the strength and conditioning coaches tell me about their experiences in there. But encourage your team to like engage in stuff outside of practice together as well, to kind of relieve that time as well.
All right, I think that's about it. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We do have that future webinar next week talking about the Iowa High School Esports Association. And then in 2 weeks, for same date and time, same bat channel, we will be with Bytespeed and Gravity Gaming, talking about the technology that's available for gaming and all that. Any last minute words from any of the panelists or Josh or Tanner?
Yeah, I'll just mention real quick, and it did come up in the Q&A. I answered it, just typed out. All of these webinars are going to be recorded. Bytespeed should be able to send those recordings with a chat log and everything, probably tomorrow morning or the following morning every week. So if you didn't get a chance to see the entire presentation, or you want to go back and reference things later on, everybody should get a YouTube link within 24 hours of the webinar being wrapped up. And if you have any other questions that can't get answered, feel free to reply back to that mail blast. We'll get you connected with the right people.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being part of this. And I hope everybody has a great day. I hope this was a good experience and you learned a little bit more about esports and K12 schooling.
Thank you.
Thank you.